Welcome back to my countdown for the James Bond movies. I think I have 5 more after this review, but for this one, it's Tomorrow Never Dies. Now, for the backstory of this, I grew up. Pierce Brosnan was my James Bond. The unfortunate thing was I was 5 when this movie came out, so I remember seeing GoldenEye as a kid. GoldenEye had a video game attached to it, very popular. And then I remember, next thing I knew, I was 7 in 1999. The World Is Not Enough was coming out. And I remember playing that game on N64. I don't remember Tomorrow Never Dies. I remember seeing like the poster for it, but I don't ever remember the movie being out and about. So I didn't watch it as a kid. And I honestly didn't watch it until I want to say like maybe less than 5 years ago. So I feel bad that I missed this because I feel like this is a great Bond film. And I do say great. I think it's a great Bond film. I just don't have the nostalgic attachment to it, which is unfortunate because I know that if I did, I feel like I would love this movie even more. So yeah, basically, this is now I think only the second time or third time I've seen this movie. So I don't really have a whole lot of negatives to this, but if I were to get in my negatives, but first, so the basic plot of this movie is that there's a media mogul named Elliot Carver, played by Jonathan Pryce. He's basically trying to dominate the world in the sense of he wants everyone to be listening to his new cable satellite show. It's like a 24-hour news cycle, so he's constantly trying to have people tune into him. He's hooked on that, and he's now at the point where he wants to stir up and make up crap. And I don't mean just like crap, like some talk and some BS. He's trying to stir up stories, like major stuff. So basically, he's got a stealth boat. And at the beginning of the film, you see that like a British ship is being attacked, and basically the Chinese are saying that, hey, you're in our waters, and the British are like, no, but our GPS says we're not. Anyway, long story short, he's trying to pit China and Great Britain against each other using some cool sly technology and tactics, and then he's reporting on stuff faster than anybody else and kind of like getting the fire started for that. So James gets called in to kind of like look into it because they kind of ask the question, how could this newspaper, Carver's newspaper, Tomorrow, I think is what it's called, how could they possibly know all this stuff like right away? So overall, like I said, I'll get into the cons first of this film because there's not a whole lot to me. I will say the cinematography of this movie is not very good, or at least in my opinion, it's very dark and dingy. And I feel like if, let's say, this plot was made in like 2006, like same time Casino Royale, and you had Martin Freeman directing it, because the guy who directed this was Roger Spottiswoode. I've never heard of that guy before. If it was like the crystal clear, beautiful picture that Casino Royale has, or Skyfall even, this movie I think would be a top 5 Bond film, because I honestly would say, out of every Bond plot that I've ever seen, and maybe I can't think of all of them, but off the top of my head, this one seems like, I think the reason why it works so well is because it almost seems like the most plausible, that a media company would be so caught up for power that they would start stirring crap because they have a lot of power. That's another thing about Jonathan Pryce's character, Elliot Carver. Most bad guys that I see that have these awesome layers and everything, I'm just like, how did you afford that? Or how did you keep that under wraps? Like, for instance, I love GoldenEye, but how did being 006, how were you able to save enough money to basically have your own hidden base on Cuba with like a satellite that comes up? I don't really understand that, but I love that movie. This one, I totally buy that Elliot Carver has enough money to basically get a stealth boat and do all this stuff in his like printing shop and buy all these goons and everything. And to me, it just made sense. So, you know, I've heard some people say that Jonathan Pryce's performance in this is a little over the top. A little bit, but at the same time, he's interesting. Like, there are too many bad guys. Like, I just got off watching Quantum of Solace. Dominic Green is not a very interesting villain. I mean, he's got some good lines, but he's not a very interesting villain. Every time Elliot Carver is saying something or on the screen, I'm hooked. I'm into it. So, he's actually one of my favorite villains. I mean, yes, he can be a little hokey sometimes with this Justin. A little over the top, but I'm here for it. You know, it's Pierce Brosnan, James Bond. I'm here for it. So that's pretty much it for the cons. Was just like the picture and the cinematography is just a little weak. I would have liked a little more. I guess one other con for me would be I don't love what's her name? The Bond girl that dies, Terry Hatcher. Not really a fan. I never was into Desperate Housewives. I mean, when that show was debuting, I was a like 12-year-old, 13-year-old. So obviously I was into sexy women, but I'm not going to sit there and watch that stuff as a little kid. But yeah, I don't. She never really did anything for me in this. I never really bought that they had some prior relationship, and I don't know. I don't really care for her as an actress. I'd never really seen anything with her that I liked. Now that's pretty much it for my negatives. I guess I'll do one more. Sorry. The guy that plays the doctor, he looks like a creepy villain, but his accent that he's doing, it doesn't sound like that's genuinely how he talks, and it just comes across as a little like, I don't know, cliche. But aside from that, everything else in this movie works for me. The plot works for me. Elliot Carver as a villain works for me. I think M does a really good job in this. Pierce Brosnan, he really is like almost perfect in this role. I would say I think he just keeps getting better with the role, but I would probably say my favorite Brosnan performance is probably World Is Not Enough. I think that's when he's at his best. Die Another Day, he still has to do some of the bad lines that he was given, but I really like his performance in Die Another Day. But this is now where he's in his mojo, and it actually makes me think that GoldenEye was his weakest Bond performance, and just because he didn't really have a whole lot to do, I guess. But yeah, this was really good. And Waylon, played by, why can't I think? Michelle Yeoh, I think is her name. I'm looking. Yeah, Michelle Yeoh. She's great. She honestly might be the best Bond girl, just because she has enough chemistry with James where I buy that like there's something there where they're into it. And obviously at the end they end up like kissing and everything, but I like that I don't think it's just playing hard to get. Like she's doing her own thing, but not in like I'm an independent woman, I don't need no man. She still talks to him, helps him out, accepts help. Like she does it in a really sleek way, and I don't know if it was just the writers or maybe she had some input, but when they're on the bike, the motorcycle, and they're handcuffed and they have to do that, she sits on his lap, and it's like, that's a really sexy moment, at least for me as a guy. I'm like, oh, that would be awesome. But she goes, just don't get any ideas, and he's like, no, I wouldn't dream of it. That's good, and it's like playful banter, and it's like letting her know, like, hey, like I'm not doing this to like seduce you. But it's still, she's not being a total bitch about it, and she was never a bitch during this whole movie. I thought she was always playful enough where like as a guy watching the movie I really liked her character, and by the end I was like, yeah, she makes a great Bond girl. The fight scenes that she does, obviously what we know about martial arts now, thanks to like UFC, you understand that like just kicking everybody and throwing everybody over shoulder really isn't going to do everything, but it's the movies. But overall, I mean, she at least can do the acrobatic, like, you know, doing a kick and like getting really high up with her kicks, so I give props to her for that. I would say there's nothing really amazing in this. There's nothing amazing in this movie for me. So I guess that's what stops it from being like really up there. Because like the bike chase, it's pretty good. The climax on the stealth boat, pretty good. The opening sequence, pretty good. But there's nothing in here that I love. Like my favorite scenes are basically with Elliot Carver, like in his like headquarters, is probably my favorite stuff. Brosnan like doing the remote control car chase, running away. I like it, but I don't love it. So I guess for me, it would be like, other than Elliot Carver, Jonathan Pryce, I don't really love a whole lot in this movie, but I don't really have a whole lot of flaws either. So it's like, this to me is a perfect like B+, A- James Bond movie, where it's not like maybe it's not a top 5 Bond movie for me, but it's like, I don't really have a whole lot of like negative things to say about it. The Sheryl Crow song I think is good. Not great, but it's good. Yeah. I love one of the best villain deaths, the way Elliot Carver dies. Come on, give the people what they want. I'm like, that's a really good line, and I like Pierce Brosnan, like what he does with that. But Stamper, he's okay as a villain. He's just a generic big blonde henchman. But overall, I'm thumbs up on Tomorrow Never Dies. Like I said, I do wish I would have watched this movie a lot more when I was younger. I didn't. It slipped through the cracks. Maybe we were just following the video games. But yeah, I remember seeing World Is Not Enough as a kid. I remember seeing GoldenEye as a kid and Die Another Day when I was 10. I just don't remember seeing Tomorrow Never Dies a whole lot, and it's a shame. But yeah, overall, I don't really have a whole lot of complaints. Good movie. So if I had to give this movie a rating, I'd give it a solid buy it, own it. It's a great Bond film. It's not a masterpiece, which is my highest grade, but second highest grade, buy it, own it. Solid. I would tell anyone that's just an action fan or a movie lover, hey, you should check out Tomorrow Never Dies and give it a shot and buy it. So that's it. Next on my Bond list is From Russia with Love. And then the remaining movies we have left on the list in no particular order is Spectre, Live and Let Die, A View to a Kill, and Goldfinger. that will be it after From Russia with Love. And then I'll finally get to do my whole Bond ranking. So see you on the next video. It'll be From Russia with Love. Have a good one, guys.